Hey, everybody. Good evening or good morning, depending where you are on the globe. Super excited to have you here and to have Guy Levy with me. In this really interesting session, we'll be discussing issues that I think affect everyone that joined this webinar. How do we prepare ourselves for really taking AI and bringing it into our organization, our company, and having it help our customers in the products we build? We'll be covering today several topics in high level and in some details. Feel free, as Amit mentioned, to ask questions. We'll try to address it either within the session or just at the end. And of course, we'll be sending the recording afterwards. So we'll be starting today by reviewing the AI stack. We say AI, but AI is actually composed of many, many parts. Then we'll bring some insights from the State of AI survey that we did this year. We'll be discussing some challenges we see from some of the biggest companies we work with AI development. And lastly, we'll be showing and highlighting some solutions that we're building and actually deploying to production for our enterprise clients to bring Gen AI into production. So just a quick word about me. My name is Guy Eshet. I'm a senior product manager here at JFrog ML, and I lead everything that has to do with AI and ML at our company. I've been actually playing with LLMs since GPT-3, before it was cool, before ChatGPT. So I've seen a lot of this progress, I think, in models and a lot of the pains really from the beginning. And I love this field. And I have also Guy with me. Guy?
Hey, Guy. Thank you for that.
It's an old joke.
Yeah, it's an old joke. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Guy Levy. I'm a VP Architect Lead in the JFrog CTO office. I'm also leading the AI Center of Excellence at JFrog. So we've been developing some of the AI systems that are already launched and still in progress with other. And in my past, I've been working in highly regulated environments like fintech, telcos, and logistics. And part of that have been around using machine learning models or any data-related systems.
Thank you, Guy. So we'll start with the obvious. And by now, and especially by the end of 24, we all know that everybody wants AI. Every company wants to implement LLMs everywhere they can. Everybody wants to use AI. And I think especially after yesterday, if you're not all up to par, OpenAI released Sora, this new video generation model. I think everybody clearly understands that if you're not going to be leveraging AI or LLMs or video generating models, you're going to be left behind. However, and it's a big however, first, there's no clear standards for LLM applications yet. In many parts, especially as Guy mentioned, in highly regulated areas, there's a lot of standards and a lot of, I think, mature regulations about how you should be building applications. But in the world of Gen AI and LLMs, it's actually building itself. Second, and very important for big companies, privacy, security, and reliability are still unsolved. A lot of open challenges and open questions about how do you really leverage these new technologies while still strictly maintaining privacy, security, and making sure products work as you wish. And I think lastly, LLM applications and Gen AI applications in general need a lot of custom tools for their specific needs. And of course, they need to be maintained in the highest enterprise grade, or they need to make sure that they address the solutions. And many times it's very difficult to combine everything together. Now, when we say LLM applications or Gen AI applications in general, what do we mean? So first and most easy are LLM endpoints, just endpoints that you ask some question for, generate me a summary, and you get back a response. Then another very common use case are chatbots. When we speak to a travel representative or when we just ask ChatGPT, we want to answer from a chatbot. We also have copilots. We'll also show you an example of a copilot that JFrog develops. A copilot is something that works with me, usually in the software industry, very common, but also in other places like marketing, something that works with you, that's kind of a product that works with your workflow. And lastly, and I think this is the most common use case that we're starting to see, are agents, which mean more complex use cases of LLMs, multiple flows, multiple tools. Let's say small representative of human beings as AI. Now, when we say an AI application, I think it's very important to keep in mind that it contains a lot of layers. It contains the data layer, which means how do I take data from my databases? How do I convert the data into either a feature store or a data pipeline? How do I use vector store to get embeddings? How do I take a lot of unstructured data? I have text, I have video, I have images. I need to take everything into account. And then I need to use models. So I need to either deploy my own open source or homemade models. I need to use other providers like OpenAI or Anthropic. I need to either fine-tune models using my own data again. And of course, I might need a model gateway, some way to kind of concentrate all the applications, all the models I'm using into one endpoint. And then on top of this, we get the application layer in the world of AI, which starts by managing prompts. So just so we're aligned, prompts are the actual commands or the instructions I give to an AI model or an LLM. It's what you ask ChatGPT. And in the world of applications, this needs to be structured. Like we have code structured, we need to have prompts structured for these AI applications to be replicable. Then I need to trace my request. Because the unstable nature of AI, I need to make sure I see and have visibility on all my requests. Every time I send a request, I need to see what was the prompt, what was the input, what was the output, how did the customer react to it? I need to have feedback. So the world of visibility into LLM applications is a must when you want to deploy something. Then one of the, I think, biggest challenges right now, and one of the actual unsolved problems, is how do I know that the model returned a good response? How do I evaluate the quality of responses? How do I really know that what I'm getting or what my users are getting is actually good for them? And lastly, there's the world of agent frameworks. It started, I think, with LangChain, and it evolves constantly with Crew AI as an example, or other development framework for how you build these AI agents, these multiple flows, multiple steps that work with external tools. And then I put security, it's not a side note, but it's kind of an overarching thing. And security is actually unique for every type of problems, because we have security in the world of prompt management, we have security in the world of model serving, we have security in the world of data. Each one of these, let's say, cubes or layers need to have its own security solutions. Now, this is a really nice chart and it's very structured and we worked really well on this. However, again, the reality of the AI stack is kind of like this. And it's not a joke. It's actually, this is the reality. We have a lot of tools that work together. And when we come to companies and we see what companies are building, it's usually something like this. They have tools for data sources and to create features. They have tools for experiment tracking, and they have different model registry, which deploys the models on a different one. And really tying this whole thing together is quite difficult. And it's actually making the world very difficult for companies to bring these solutions into production. And why is that? Because you need to coordinate and you need to maintain a lot of different tools, and to make sure they work, you need to make sure that everybody in your company has permissions, know how to use them, and have this in the best standard, and also with security in every kind of area. This brings me to some of the revelations we had in the State of AI review that we did. So a lot of companies, we asked, what's the status of your current AI initiatives? So we see many companies currently, in the beta phase. This means that they have something running, they started a POC, they started a demo, and they're now testing it. Not a lot of companies have their products in production. Now, when I mean production, I mean unlimited for users without having just a really small kind of group of users testing it, kind of having it out in the wild. And I think because of the challenges I mentioned before, it's becoming increasingly difficult for companies to have this, to maintain quality and cost, and to have visibility on all this. Now, one cool other thing that we discovered that's different in AI applications than in the classical world of data science is who, for example, handles prompts. And again, prompts are these instructions that we give AI models. So we see that in the majority of companies, it's actually the developers and the prompt engineers, a lot of kind of mixed between data science, developer, and product managers do that. And data scientists are not the primary kind of contributor to creating prompts in the organization. And it's also kind of a paradigm shift that you have different types of people working on AI projects. And I think this is really interesting. And it's interesting because everybody is facing a lot of problems. Many times we see just one or two problems across the board when we review issues in new technologies, especially in mature technologies. But because AI is so new, you look at the problems and everything is a problem. Prompt management is a problem. Model evaluation is a problem. Usage and cost tracking is a problem because you don't want to be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to OpenAI without having the ROI for this. Workflow debugging is an issue. Testing environment is an issue. So kind of every step of the way is difficult. And if I just go quickly backstory for this step, this means that there are challenges in quite every step of this new AI stack that you need to handle in order to really deploy something into production. And by this, I want to give Guy kind of, to let Guy explain us a bit of what it actually means to deploy something in production. And we'll start with this. Guy.
Thank you. And working with the biggest companies in the world in their endeavor in order to get AI-powered application out into production, we see several things that are constraints or areas that of importance that customers are looking into when they try to take things to production. I think that it does resemble any other software product that customers want to take to production, but there are variations that are very crucial for the AI domain. First of all, we are talking about manageability and control, reproducibility and reliability. You need to make sure that you are getting the right answers and the right results in a reproducible and reliable way for every customer at any circumstances. And this gives you a set of constraints regarding how you manage those systems, the data, and all the rest. Another aspect is around the regulation, legal, and security. And here, this is some kind of a variation. And we will talk about legal in few slides, but for all of you, I think it's safe to assume that we are all 2 degrees of separation from a legal constraint in terms of AI, meaning that if we are not under a specific direct legal constraint, then our customers are, and if not, their customers are. And we will get into the details in few slides. Next slide, please, Guy. So let's take an example, the JFrog Copilot extension that we launched back in September. It's a GitHub Copilot chat extension that relies on JFrog catalog and curation products, where we are holding a full catalog of all the open source packages in every language that are being used in the industry, with a lot of metadata regarding the capabilities, the licensing, and the security posture of those packages. And actually, we took those assets and we created a Copilot extension where a developer can ask and get recommendations for third parties' dependencies, and to make sure that everything that is included within the software is secured and complies to the company policies. This actually reduces the number of build failed and other gates failure downstream in the development cycle. Let's go to the next slide. And here, just from this project, we figured out that several items are actively affecting the quality of the responses that we are giving the customers. Some of them are pretty obvious, like what type of model we are using, and what the parameters, the temperature and other parameters we are giving those models, what version of model, what prompts are we using, what kind of information regarding the question, the circumstances and the context we are giving those models in order to draw the answers to the customers. What is the application code? So I think one thing that we are seeing also in the stack that Guy showed before, the LLM or AI applications are getting several layers, and you have sometimes several LLMs involved in a single answer. You might have guardrails, you might have other logic that imposed within the single application call. So all of this affects the quality of the answer that you are giving to the user. Another aspect is the data. May that be training data or RAG or any other data enhancement application that is done inline. The type of data that you are using implies the quality of the response that you can give. Other parts that are not very obvious, the guardrails and evaluation. Some of the technologies of the guardrails are actually looking into the questions and looking into the answers between the user and the LLM, and filtering out based on several parameters, answers that are not appropriate and questions that are not appropriate. And here we started to see unpredictable responses and things that you might think need to be blocked are freely allowed, and vice versa. And I think the last thing regarding the deployment was very strange to me at first. So we saw difference in quality between different hosting regions. The same version of model in a different region gave us different quality of responses. The containers or the configuration of the infrastructure that holds the model, the GPUs, and all of that has been, we saw that and we measured that. So this is things that if you see this kind of weird behavior in your environment, just know you are not hallucinating and you are not alone. This is a real behavior that we are witnessing in our application. And
I think there was one funny thing you told me, that one day you woke up and you saw that all the responses were bad, and then you figured that something changed kind of behind the scenes, right? You want to tell the guys about this?
Yeah, so this is, again, because we are very worried about quality and we are measuring our quality on an ongoing way, there was some kind of, nothing changed. We didn't change. We did not deploy anything. No parameter moved. Nothing changed. Just running the same test day after day, and we got a drop of quality that is substantial between quality that can be released, and we have some kind of a bar of quality where you can release a version, and a quality that is unreleasable. And this was not with no active action on our part. Again, we assume, we don't know, but we assume that there was something in the hosting environment or in the vendor itself, some kind of changes that are not presented to us as users.
And there was one question. There are several questions we'll try to address at the end, but there's just one question now: is how did you measure the quality of the responses that you got?
Here we are using several heuristics. It really depends on the use case. Let's say that there is something that is very appealing in the way that the LLMs answer questions in a way that are sometimes unique. It's just like they have some kind of a personality and variations, but it make the measurement very hard. In some cases, in some use cases that we defined, we wanted to gain a quality that is character perfect, let's say it this way. You want to be, when you are recommending code, you want to be very, very accurate, and a change in a single character is meaningful. So here we used a very strict heuristics in order to find out what are the parts that needs to be accurate and to actually measure character by character. This is one side. And on the other hand, when the use cases is more conversational, you want to make sure that you get an answer that is around the topic that you want to give. And here, there are several heuristics where we've been experimenting with most of them and using the best one for the use cases, but vectorization and finding the cosine similarity between a ground truth and the answer, or getting some kind of vectorization in order to estimate the quality of the answer is more appropriate to those use cases.
Let's move on and we'll get back to some questions at the end.
All right. So going back to what we figured out that we need to control, and this is echoing to us from customers that we are working with. First, we talked about manageability and control. So you need to have the right levers and the right visibility to the infrastructure, how you scale your application over the infrastructure, and how you scale your model over this infrastructure. You need to measure the quality not only at the life cycle gates of your application, meaning before you go to production or before you go to staging, but as an ongoing measure of what kind of quality your customers are getting. Performance, again, over time. To make sure that you have the right access control. One thing around the model is every data that you expose becomes intrinsic. When you expose it within the training phase, it becomes intrinsic data to the model, and then you need to make sure that customers are getting the right data and the appropriate data, and there is no leakage between organizations. So this is very important. Ownership, just for example, we saw a few slides ago how many people are handling the prompts in organizations. So it's nice. You have seven personas that are handling the prompts, but when you have a problem, who you go to? Who is the owner? Who is changing that? Who is upgrading that? This is an important part. So all hands on deck is nice, but you need an owner in order to manage that. And of course, you need to have the right life cycle in place and to manage it, because you want to get to the right quality time after time, different region, different customers. And here about legal. I think during my career, I saw several emerging technologies and how they got into market. And in all the cases, you had like 3-4 years that the industry played with the new technology, and then best practices are built from the ground up, and only then legal is catching up and trying to formalize everything around those best practices. Here, I think it's the first time that I see that legal is on par in terms of timing with the technology, and the regulation and the constraints and the legal work that is done around AI is unprecedented for what I remember. And here it's not only items that are getting out, there are specific certification that are done for lawyers in order to make sure that they are aligned with the industry standards here. And here, for us, as development organization, we need to ask ourselves that, are we working with the appropriate lawyers? And those lawyers, do they have the appropriate certification and understanding in this field? Because the regulation in some cases is very accurate and it's very limiting. And you don't want to do an investment and then not to be able to sell it because some of the regulation are things that you didn't know of.
I think also it's interesting to see that we have new types of licenses. We are used to just Python package licensing, but here in the worlds of models, I think we get all the options between super open and Llama getting a different license for every different models with very nitpicky kind of terms and conditions that you really have to kind of know the difference from. So,
and here it all boils down to what you need to make sure that you are governing and regulating from the beginning, because at the end of the day, all of those regulation and all of those concerns, you need to have transparency, meaning to declare what you are using, what type of AI, what type of data, and how you do that. You need to have control mechanisms, not only specific one-time control over a specific project, but you need to make sure that you have a mechanism that control your AI application and development and release. And of course, at the end of the day, you need to be able to prove all of that in a case of audit.
In the court of law.
Yeah. So there's no audit log. It's not a viable answer in this domain.
Definitely.
And just I've put here a partial list of the things that we've been tracking in our applications to make sure that we are in control and we know what is going on. We are tracking the base models and the reversion, what training data sets we are using, what data pipelines we are using on those, what kind of configuration and code we are using in the training and in inference. Of course, third parties dependencies, their versions, what type of containers, prompts, configuration of guardrails, and what type of things that we are putting in the stream of the question and answer to make sure that we are sanitizing the questions and the answers. Of course, the infrastructure and its configuration and all the privacy measures that we put in place in our application in order to make sure that we are delivering responsible AI.
And I just want to link this to what you said before. So two really interesting points about versioning. Remember this thing that Guy said, that they woke up one morning and everything broke down. So this means that you need to keep in mind of all these moving parts in order to revert your application. So many times a git revert is just, okay, let's take the previous versions. But in deployment of AI production applications, you really need to make sure and see all these moving parts, and this is your actual version. It's not just one thing. It's like the all hands on deck on prompts. Prompts are just one thing of this whole pipeline called an LLM application that can break down. And let's just take two questions before we move on. And don't worry, we'll answer everything when we finish. Let's just start from the end. Ofer asked, what framework do you use to capture all this? Is it in-house tools or something else?
Okay. First of all, Ofer, hi, Ofer. It's been a long time. Thank you for the question. We are capturing Well, actually, we are using some of our internal capabilities. This is part of the value that we are bringing in traditional software to our customers. So part of it is using things that are already in-house, and I think that in a couple of slides we will show some of the items that we already providing. And some of those were enhancement on top of existing technology.
And we have just one quick question we'll answer, and then we'll address the rest at the end. From Rosemary asking, is it worthwhile for non-lawyers to go into the AI regulation certification? What do you think, Guy?
Wow. If you are asking if you want to do a career change to be a lawyer, this is not something that I feel qualified to answer about. But I think that, again, going into this regulation, it's a very close collaboration between the lawyers and the legal part and the technology part. The regulation is very technological and very specific in some cases. So you need to make sure that you are reading it right and you are implementing it right. And on one hand, and on the other hand, this is why I think AI regulation is going to be a real legal specialization, because it's a heavy duty material for lawyers that need to go into the domain.
I really agree with you. I want to present, before we address some of the other questions, I want to show you guys what we are building here at JFrog to help companies address these issues and really take their projects and products into production. And we'll show you things from several different angles, which I think is really interesting. So first, let's talk about Hugging Face and Hugging Face repositories. So if not everyone is aware, Hugging Face is I think, de facto open source repository for open source models. This means that everybody or everyone who has an open source model, meaning a model that other people can use, again, going to legal by its own license, is uploading it to Hugging Face, which is like the GitHub for code, but Hugging Face for models. Now, many organizations want to work with models from Hugging Face. Maybe they're using Llama 3.3 that was released just now. Maybe it's just another open source model that someone fine-tuned. Maybe it's anything else, exactly like the world of Python packages and open source from Java or C. However, when you start deploying these into your production applications on multiple regions across the globe, there are some issues you want to start addressing, and we've been seeing this across the board. First, and I think the most trivial one, Hugging Face is currently considering whether to continue or not private repos. This means that you upload models for yourself and you don't want to share them with the community. These are private repos, and many organizations want to create their own models and don't want to share them with the rest of the world, just want to work with the same standards. So the moment you want to work with private repos, it's not the optimal solution for you. Then what we also do is we help you unify the local and remote repositories. This means that we proxy models from Hugging Face, letting you consume models from this repo, from your local repo, not from the official Hugging Face one. And you can also use the same interface for your local repo. Now, why would you care? Remember that models can vary between several megabytes and tens of gigabytes. Now, the moment you want to download several gigabytes from wherever repo in the world, you start getting delays, maybe you get timeouts, and you can't afford this if you want to scale, if you want to redeploy an application. You need these files to be available quickly and where you want them. And once organizations start deploying a lot of models, we see that approaching the global or the public Hugging Face repo is not the right solution. And then third, it's about optimization. Again, you need to pay and wait for this traffic. If you download, I think, Llama 70 billion parameters, it's 50 gigabytes or something of that magnitude. And it's something you want to optimize, and you don't want to be downloading from some public repo in a non-optimal way. And then fourth, and of course, it's about security. Hugging Face does support some security scanning of their own public repos. However, many organizations, we work with the largest banks in the world, they have their own regulation, they have their own standard. And again, remember, they have their own audit log, and they want to make sure that they support the standard that they want to apply. So we provide them security on these repos as well, because again, we're this proxy layer between the global Hugging Face and the local Hugging Face. And the last one, and it's exactly what we talked about, it's about licensing. Remember that some organization, we work with organization with 10,000 developers, and developers, again, are the ones writing the prompts. If data scientists used to be the ones that handle data science, and let's say you have 100 of those, some organization and some banks have 10,000 and 20,000 developers, and these developers will be the one to work with models. However, some models cannot be deployed in production. Some models are provided only for research purposes. You can't have these models in commercial application. So we allow these organizations to limit the Hugging Face kind of consumption or Hugging Face usage and let the admin say, okay, you can use whatever models you want, unless only if they have Apache 2 license, or only if they have more than 20,000 downloads, so that you don't get this newbie uploading a new model with 2 downloads and have this used in your production environment. So it has many resemblances to the world of software and kind of the open source package world, however, kind of applied to the world of machine learning. And it's really cool to see, and this is actually in production in some of the largest companies in the world. And I let Guy also explain about the next one with NVIDIA.
Yeah, thank you, guys. So an additional capability that we announced and will be shortly be available is around consumption of NVIDIA NIMs. Everybody, I think, knows NVIDIA, but NIMs is optimized containers for specific of LLMs and other models for specific GPUs. So you have a pre-configured container that figures out what type of GPU it is running on, and then downloading and configuring a specific optimized version of the model that you want that will be optimized for that GPU. This gives a very cost benefit advantage to users. I'm not sure if everybody are familiar with what it takes in order to optimize the model to a specific GPU and to get the best performance out of this. It's a complex work. And here NVIDIA has done the work for us, and it's optimized for those GPUs. And this type of integration is making sure that organizations that are using the NVIDIA NIM are pulling both the container and the optimized model versions through Artifactory and gaining the same benefits that the Guy explained previously about Hugging Face. So you know that you own all the binaries that you are using. They are locally to you. You can download them locally. You can scan and apply security policies and security scans to make sure that everything that enters your organization is sanitized. And side by side with that, you are enjoying the optimization that NVIDIA is pre-prepared for all of us.
And just remember that when we say optimization in the world of LLMs, is both optimization for compute, so they bring artifacts that are optimized for this Docker, and optimization is also the upload and download, because again, a Docker container could be tens or even hundreds of gigabytes. And when you start messing around with those, you really want to be optimal because you pay a lot for transfer costs. And we've all seen bills for high transfer costs, and it's not, we have enough bills for AI, that's fine. And I think the last thing we'll show before we discuss the questions, we have a lot of questions coming up. And this is something personal for me because I came from Qwak, is the latest acquisition that JFrog announced. I think we're celebrating 6 months to the acquisition. JFrog acquired Qwak, and Qwak is was a startup developing an MLOps platform, also serving some of the biggest companies in the world. And we've actually integrated Qwak into JFrog, and we're launching now, and it's actually launched, but we're actually launching more features. And we're now JFrog ML. And JFrog ML is one platform that brings AI, DevOps, and security, which means that you can take all your MLOps processes or your model development from research actually to runtime, all with the JFrog platform. And if we look at it from another kind of angle, we all know the SDLC, the software development lifecycle, where you create code, you build code, you test it, you release it, you deploy and monitor it, which is actually the bread and butter of our factory, doing this for the biggest companies in the world. And we're now actually bridging MLOps and soon also GenAI Ops into this pipeline. Because as we said before, and I think this versioning slide of that Guy described, we have about 10 moving parts that we want to version, from the prompt to the model code, to the model files, to the deployment and the dependencies. We may have vulnerabilities and security issues in every part of the way. And it actually behaves very much like the good old DevOps practices that we know, but it needs to be actually transformed and applied to these fields. And this is exactly what we're doing. And by doing this, we're bridging the world of ML and AI with the training data and the feature store and the model monitoring and the model serving and the vector store to the things that we want to have in the world of compliance, regulation, and enterprise grade, which is model scanning and ML bomb, where you can really kind of track everything that you have, data set and model curation, that you want to make sure that the organization receives only what it wants to receive, scanning dependencies, and also maintaining prompts. And we're really kind of bridging these two together in an LLM, in an enterprise grade environment. And I think just to summarize before we take some questions, I think we saw that regulation, legal, and control are becoming increasingly important. Regulation are things you need to know, and of course need to work with lawyers. But you, as people who develop and lead projects, need to take care, both with legal and control. I think it's all about versioning, as our second point says. GenAI application need a lot of versioning, a lot of security, and a lot of auditability, a lot of visibility, so you can know what's going on and make sure that it behaves like you want. And I think also is really preparing the tools that you need to go from research to production, because a lot of the work is iterative. I think also Guy can attest that their JFrog Copilot hasn't been just a one launch and that's it. It's a lot of iteration. It's a lot of changes. Things because you want to change, and because the environment changes, and because every second day you have a new model you want to test. You want to have these tools kind of ready to go from research to production very quickly. And I think lastly, in these points, is that DevOps practices, which is versioning, optimization, security, are becoming extremely mixed with the GenAI lifecycle of LLM applications. And we see this across the board. Anything else you want to add, Guy, before we go to questions?
No, I think you covered it perfectly. Thank you, Guy.
Cool. So let's take questions. We have a lot. And let's start. So Tom asked, how much is this Copilot plug similar to Docker Scout?
I'm not familiar with the Docker Scout, but well, you can actually try it out. First of all, it's out there. And second, we are giving recommendation based on our proprietary information. So we know open source packages and their usage in a very intimate way. This is what we are doing for the past 16 years.
And we have another question from Mirali, that they're using on-prem Artifactory for their DevOps pipeline, and they're using it on Azure Databricks. So whether we can integrate with these two offerings. So I'll just take this and say that during the next year, we're going to be offering JFrog ML, the platform I just described, on-prem. However, the Hugging Face repos and some of the NVIDIA NEMA integrations already exist on self-hosted and on-prem deployment. So I think it's best if you just question us, send us an email afterwards, or we'll just ask your AEs. They will help you with this. We have a question from Kate.
Okay, yeah, about the issue with the quality without doing anything. So actually, I think the first thing is to be in a position that you understand that you didn't change anything. And this kind of visibility and understanding is not trivial. You got the response, you got the quality drop, but then you need to go back and trace what happened. So this was a very eye-opening event. And after that, again, it's like any other thing in software. We did exploration. We tried several things. We moved things around. We tried different models with different versions. And at the end of the day, a variation gave us got us back to the right quality level.
We have a question from Mauricio, and I'll take this. And he asks, how do you prioritize manageability and control? I think it's the ultimate question. How do you prioritize what you want to control and manage without hearing it depends? And of course, it depends. However, I think our approach, and Guy, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the solution for AI applications is not one. There are multiple. There are multiple solutions. And this is why we take this whole platform approach to give you several things. There's the MLOps platform, there's the Hugging Face repos, there's the deployment, there's Artifactory versioning, a lot of things that you want to have in one place that will give you the most, because you want to be ready with the audit log, you want to be ready with visibility. And I think more is better. The more you can is better. And having one platform that gives you the most, I think will benefit a lot. Do you want to add on this something, Guy?
I think that, again, it comes back to the understanding of the current situation, to understand what is going on, what do you have in production, what types of measure, what are the current observability tools and understanding gives you. And having this kind of overall picture is crucial in order to optimize the operation and actually doing things like rollback. Just think about AI application that you need to roll back, whatever the reason should be, just understanding what is the current situation and what was the previous stable situation that you want to go to. It's something that you need this understanding. And I think it relates to the last question from Maurizio. I think that platforms and having an end-to-end visibility requires a platform that can connect the dots. If you have a lot of point solutions here and it leaves connecting the dots at your plate.
It's like the first slide I saw with the messy kind of part, which is actually reality.
Actually. So here, I think that at the end of the day, it will be platforms that will handle that.
There's another question by Bernard that we did not differentiate in the report between public and company internal AI apps. And with on-cloud and on-prem hosting, I'll just say one word about this. I think that, of course, public apps have more issues, but I think it very much returns to the same way. Because if you have a company internal app with 10,000 internal users, you're in the same issue as having a public one, because if the quality is not good and if it doesn't work well, nobody's going to use it. And I think lastly, regarding on-prem, we do see a lot of companies going for on-prem, especially for the large deployment, especially on GPUs, mostly for the shortage of GPUs and to gain more compute power. We have one more legal question.
One thing I would like to say about that, it's also resolving a lot of privacy and data issues. The ability to have a self-hosted model where you don't share your data with other vendors and it's not traveling on the wire. It's sometimes promotes architecture that is easily defendable. And again, for our application, we are working with both, and we are seeing the benefits of each approach here.
We have just, I think, time for one or two more, so we'll try to pick the best, and then feel free to message us afterward. We have one more is if we think that industry will work on specialized tool for each AI risk or move to a platform type of solution covering more of these risks. So our answer is the platform approach because we see this. We see organization not wanting to work with many types of solutions. We see organization wanting to work with one solution that will solve many cases because again, when things happen and things go for the bad side, let's say, you want to have one place where you see everything. How do you see this, Guy?
Again, it's the same. If you don't have a platform that connects the dot, the problem is at your plate. You will get many indications, but you need to understand what the situation is.
Yeah. I think we have just a place for just one last question. We have a question from Bernard. If we see some kind of format of LLM app versioning of things like this. So we are starting to see, and we will be releasing next year tools to help in this. However, there's still not one standard for how you should version, manage, and deploy your LLM applications. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you very much, Guy, for being here with me and explaining us about your work. Feel free to contact us and to go to jfrog.com/jfrog-ml. This is where we concentrate all our offerings in the world of ML. We'll be offering a lot of new things next year and a lot more LLM applications. And thank you very much for joining us. And thank you very much, Guy.
And thank you, Guy, for having me.
Bye-bye, everybody, and good night,
Bye.
or have a great day.